Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. A fresh wave of optimism is blowing across the industrial sector with the recent signing of a bilateral agreement between Nigeria and Russia for the resuscitation and completion of the 40-year-old Ajaokuta Steel Company. The soon-to-be-revamped steel plant is part of the roadmap by the Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Olamilekan Adegbite, for the transformation of the entire steel industry. Olamilekan Adegbite, Minister of Mines and Steel Development, joins us now to discuss this and how Nigeria can harness its solid mineral resources in a bid to diversify foreign exchange earnings, illegal mining activities in several parts of the country, how to address that, especially in northern Nigeria, and the effort so far to get Russia to resuscitate the moribund Ajaokuta Steel Plant. Welcome to the morning show, Honorable Minister of Mines and Steel Development. Good morning.
Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning. Well, quickly, let me ask you, I started the introduction on a note of optimism. But how optimistic should we be about the Ajaokuta Steel Company, considering the fact that it has almost become a white elephant project? Since 1979, we've just been going back and forth from the Russians to the Indians and now back to the Russians. What should give Nigerians any hope that this time around we would get it right? Or shouldn't we just, as others have suggested, privatize the Ajaokuta Steel Company and take government out of it completely?
Thank you, Robin. We need to be optimistic about Ajaokuta, all of us, and then, of course, this particular administration is giving us its best shot now on Ajaokuta. We've tried quasi-privatization in the past. We've tried concession with the Americans, with, like you said, the Indians and all that, and it's all failed. Now we've gone back to the original people that built Ajaokuta. It's unfortunate that we're at this impasse because Ajaokuta, everybody will tell you 95% completion, 98% completion, and somewhere between that, 95 to 98. And you just wonder why not that little push over. There was a conspiracy internationally for Nigeria not to produce steel, especially then. The West were buying our steel from the West, and of course they didn't want us to produce steel. And of course with some local collusion, whatever, Ajaokuta has failed. But that's in the past. The focus now is on making sure Ajaokuta works. Mr. President, President Muhammadu Buhari has said, look, we cannot throw Nigeria's money, hard-earned revenue, at Ajaokuta again. So we are looking at something totally different and innovative. We've gone back to the Russians, who were the original builders under the Soviet Union. Russia, Ukraine, and then some Romania has participated. Now what we're doing is we've gone to the government of Russia, and they're working with the Nigerian government to say that Russia will nominate a contractor from their country. We've got funding from the Russian Export Center, that's something like an Exim Bank, and of course from Exim Bank. We've got this funding. Now, the Russian government will bring the contractor forward, and we're working government to government. This seems to be a better idea than what we had in the past, where it was just profit-oriented, and of course people just came in and milked Ajaokuta. Ajaokuta has worked at different times, sporadically, one activity or the other. But now the thing is to get it working and to keep it working. The arrangement we have now in place is that the company will come in with the funding we are getting, and Ajaokuta itself will pay for itself. So we don't have to involve public funds in Ajaokuta. That's the model we're working on now. As we speak, we are developing a business model to justify that. And this time, with all the hands on deck, and I think we should get it right.
Well, just a follow-up question. You say that public funds will not be involved. But isn't it the case that in the 2020 budget, there is provision of a substantial amount of money for Ajaokuta Steel Company? Because that would seem to contradict what you just said about not involving public funds and coming up with a business model, assuming that, we're able to get it going beyond the small efforts going on there.
Thank you, Ben, for that, Ruben, for that observation. When I came to office some few months ago, And I looked in the budget over the years, and I see that, look, we're paying staff in Ajaokuta, I mean, something close to about over 2 billion every year. That's the budget. And I said, oh, why this? The place is not functioning. Why don't you throw it out? But I've since taken that back. I've visited Ajaokuta, and I realized that the only reason why we have assets there today, why Ajaokuta is intact, is because we've been spending that money annually, paying the staff. What government has done over the years is to maintain the staff in Ajaokuta, and they've been operating skeletally. They keep the machines moving, they do the oiling, they do routine maintenance of those. And that is why there's something we can come back to. We all know what this country is like. Look at the rail sleepers that's just been installed and people are still in them. If Ajaokuta had been left since, I think about 94 or so, you won't meet anything there. The whole place will be vandalized. It will become a ghost town. Let me give you this. Ajaokuta itself is bigger than the whole of the FCT. Ajaokuta was created as a steel territory and is a bigger town than Abuja FCT that we have here. It has its own airport, it has its own port, it has communities, over 10,000 housing units. All these has been maintained by this money that you see in the budget. And of course, the same thing for next year. The staff are there. Ultimately, when Ajaokuta is running, of course, like I said, the business model will take over because then it will be able to pay staff and, of course, pay its way out of these borrowings that's going to fix Ajaokuta itself. But what you see in the budget is actually the fund to pay the staff of Ajaokuta, and it's been like that. And I think it's something that is commendable.
Honourable Minister, thank you very much for that answer. Now, I want to discuss the GDP because currently solid mining and solid minerals only account for 0.3% of the gross domestic product as it stands. How are we looking to increase that before 2020 or during 2020?
Well, I think your data is slightly out of date. We were 0.03 in 2015. As of 2018 or 2018, we've grown to 0.05. You may say that's just marginal increase.
Sounds marginal to me, Honourable.
That shows you that attention, since 2015, when this administration came on board, they've put a lot of attention on mining, and have put a lot of money into it as well. And we begin to see increments on that. Even our revenue this year has surpassed whatever we've done in the past since we started monitoring. We're monitoring revenue since about 2005. And right now, this year is gone on record. I think we're going to make about 5 billion. That's from direct royalty and licensing. There's a lot of money that comes in from mining, which we are now trying to insist that should be credited to mining. Look at all the cement companies in Nigeria. Essentially, the major ingredient is limestone, which is from mining. So a lot of money that is paid to government as taxes on this limestone thing is not credited to mining. It's credited to the industry and some other sectors. If we credit that, actually what mining is contributing now is slightly higher than the data we have. But as of 2018, it had climbed from 0.3 to 0.5.
Well, I think that is laudable, but being that Nigeria is enriched with over 40 different types of solid minerals, from marble, gypsum, lithium, silver, granite, gold, gemstones, I mean, what is it exactly? How are we proposing to utilize these minerals to serve the people?
Well, what really happened was that Nigeria lost focus on mining when we got oil and gas, and then we moved away. Because when the colonials were here, they relied on mining. Nigeria was quoted copiously on the London Metal Exchange. We were the largest exporter of columbite at one point. We were exporting coal, we were exporting tin to the world. And of course, Nigeria was quoted on, like I said, on the exchange. But with the advent of oil and gas, we shifted focus away from mining. But now that oil and gas, fossil fuel is on its way out, everybody's talking climate change and all that, the focus is now back on mining. And the potential in mining actually can surpass what we have in oil and gas. Like you said, as of today, about 44 minerals have been identified, especially the minerals of the future, like coltan, cobalt, lithium. These are materials of the future, and Nigeria has abundance of that. When you go into electric cars, when you go into your mobile phones and all that, these are the materials that are used for that. But besides, the immediate ones, those are the industrial minerals that we are trying to make sure we use. I've spoken about barite on so many forums. That's one. Nigerians spend several millions of dollars annually importing barite into Nigeria. Nigeria has plenty of barite. The problem had been the gap between the mines and the market, and we are bridging that to make sure that in about a year's time, we'll start supplying Nigerian market with barite. And we're looking at about 2 years to make sure that we satisfy local demand, and then we can stop importation, meet the quality that's required. That's one. There's the dimension stones. You mentioned marble. We have granite. People spend millions of dollars annually importing from Italy, from China and all that. But we got this material. There was a success story when I was working for Ogun State government. The largest ceramic tile manufacturer came into Ogun State. That's CDK. That's the Shagamu interchange. And now, the good thing about that, which is for mining, they are producing tiles which they export to the world. And you see made in Nigeria, Ogun State, on those cartons that's been exported to the world. That is, so, what do you say? That's
amazing. That's laudable.
Yes, it's a success story. They're the largest manufacturer of tiles and ceramics in the world. They do all these, your toilet fixtures, fittings, and all that. It's just been done out of Shagamu in Ogun State. That's one of the success stories of mining. The material is there. We're trying to extend that into marble, granite. We've got various stones all over the country. Dimension stones. Instead of importing your granite, your marble for millions of dollars, we can do it here. It's the same stones that is
Honorable.
All you need is the right equipment to polish them. So those are the things that we're doing.
Exactly. Now, I am curious.
To use minerals and, of course...
I'm curious as to something else now. The Nigerian iron ore, company. Now, we all know that it was tasked with, processing and supplying. That is the Ajaokuta Steel Company with, iron, steel, and all of that. And I'm really curious, since the Ajaokuta Steel Company is not functional at the moment, what exactly the company does, its functionality, and also what are the plans of reviving some, national mining companies as well? Are there any plans to revive any of these? Because just like we've spoken, we have so many natural resources that if we pay attention to could actually help the company, or rather the country that is Nigeria.
Well, I think I explained Ajaokuta. You need to visit Ajaokuta. Everybody says Ajaokuta, and I said, people are emotional about it. Some even say, let's sell it outright. Nigeria has spent close to $6 billion on Ajaokuta as it stands. But you need to go there. Ajaokuta is not somewhere you stay. Like I said, just to give you an impression, it's bigger than the whole of Abuja. That's the steel territory. Bigger than the FCT itself. And there's a lot of money that's been sunken into that place. It's a lot of investment. But this investment has been kept alive by the money we pay to the staff annually. The housing units there, about 10,000 housing units are there. You've got the plant itself, which is being maintained. Even now, as the Russians are coming, all the mechanical parts are intact, almost 100%. Most of the things that will be changing at Ajaokuta will be the electronics and a few things like that, which, of course, some are obsolete because they've been fixed since, I think, 94. That was the terminal time when they pulled out. So Ajaokuta itself is something that is a game changer for Nigeria because you cannot industrialize if you don't have steel. That's very important. Even steel in construction, we spend several billions of dollars every year importing steel into this country. If Ajaokuta could come on stream, there are a few local companies that are producing steel now, but they can't even meet local demand. So we still import a lot of steel into Nigeria. If Ajaokuta were to produce, the facility in Ajaokuta is so outstanding. We can even begin to make ammunitions for the military. We can begin to make car parts, panels for vehicles, engine block. Everything is there. So it's a lot of potential. Once you produce liquid steel, you can now transform it into anything. And of course, it's going to create a lot of employment, which is the mandate the president has given us. Create a lot of employment, generate revenue for Nigeria, and of course, begin to take all these millions of youths who are roaming the streets off the streets. Ajaokuta has a lot of benefits downstream as well. A lot of foundry will benefit from the products from Ajaokuta. Our industries will benefit. There's so many things that will come from Ajaokuta doing Ajaokuta. And like I said, mining, of course, Ajaokuta itself is mining because you have to mine the iron ore. and then, of course, which is the major ingredient into steel production. We mine the iron ore at Itape.
Honorable
and of
Minister.
course, there's a rail link that transports it to Ajaokuta, and so on and so forth. There's so much potential in mining and steel for Nigeria. And I think we'll put the right focus as we're doing now, and we sustain that. I think we'll get there.
Yeah, earlier on, I thought Kachi was drawing your attention to the iron ore company at Itape and the status of that company, which is supposed to feed the Ajaokuta steel mill. But, you know, while you talk about the status of iron ore company in Itape, I would also like you to, you know, tell us what is happening at the aluminum smelter company that is in Ikorabasi. You know, what is happening with it? Is it also in the same, you know, state as the Ajaokuta Steel Mill? And then also the one that has been sold off by Amcon, the Delta Steel Company in Alaja. The story we hear about Delta Steel Company in Alaja is about asset stripping by the new managers and, you know, vandalization of assets and all kinds of sordid stories. You know, what is the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development doing about some of these strategic national assets?
Well, let me start with Neomco. That's the Nigerian Iron Mining Company. That's Itape. Yeah. Itape is still intact. There's nothing wrong. Like if just a few renovation and there refurbishment, Itape is ready to supply iron ore to Ajaokuta. So there's no, we don't have so much to do in Itape. So Itape is actually good to go. We are, like I said, a few tweaking. Recently, the Ministry of Transportation just rehabilitated the rail line that links from Warri, of course, that's at Alaja, to Itape and to Ajaokuta. So we are good to go as far as Itape is concerned, just a few tweaking. But then, I must tell you, the other two you asked about, that's the Ikorabasi, the aluminum smelting company, is no longer Nigerians' concern. That has been privatized. It's a private company now that has been sold and I think paid for, Olamilekan. Ditto with Delta Steel in Alaja is also privatized. It's out of Nigerian government hand. So those two entities are no longer national assets. They've been privatized, of course, in the best opinion of the government that come before us. Those ones have been privatized out. And of course, what we do is just more or less a supervisory role, monitoring what they do, make sure their products that they bring out meets international standards.
Well,
but
you
those
said
two
they've
are
been
out of
privatized, but
Itape, which is still in government hand, and Ajaokuta, of course, are online.
You said they've been privatized, but is there not budgetary provision also for Delta Steel Company Alaja?
Yes, Delta Steel Company is now called Premium Steel. Yes, it's been sold. It's no longer with us. That's what I'm saying. That's been sold even before this present administration. So it's been sold. The aluminum smelting company in Ikorabasi has also been sold. Those have been privatized by the BPA.
Honourable Minister, I want to discuss the sustenance of the country because, as you mentioned earlier, we became so reliant upon oil and gas that we forgot about everything else that we have access to, all of our minerals, from agriculture to steel development to mining. But do we really believe that focusing on mining can actually sustain the GDP of Nigeria?
Yes, I can say that. The potentials in mining is so vast that it can, of course, surpass oil and gas in terms of earnings. For instance, there was a joke just last week. Myself and the Minister of Petroleum, Minister of State for Petroleum, were talking about. Say, okay, give me 1 kilogram of gold, and I'll give you 1 kilogram of oil. You know, I call him the Minister for black gold. And you see, you cannot compare that. Maybe a kilogram, the weight in oil, will sell for maybe just about 1,000 naira or thereabout. I can't tell. For gold, that will sell for about $1.4 million. So if we get it right, the potential we have plenty of gold. We have not even spoken about gemstones that we have in Nigeria. Some of these stones are so rare that they're not found anywhere else, and people are anchoring after them. People are coming after them. Unfortunately, we've had a few illegal mining of these assets, but we are stemming that. So we've got gold on one hand, which is a game changer. If we will get our gold right, it can hand so much for us. We've got all these sapphire, ruby, topaz, so many of these gemstones. That's another industry on its own. Apart from the revenue potential, it also can create jobs. Now, part of the things we're doing is that we are training people to be able to handle gemstones, create jewelry, and all that. And I think just last week, Thursday, I was in a factory in Abuja here. I went to inspect. There's a lady that's making jewelry. And I was so happy. She made a jewelry, a custom-made jewelry for a big society wedding in Nigeria. I saw the picture. And the bride was looking so lovely. You would think that, look, this came from any of these big capitals of the world. It was made right here in Abuja. And that's the potential we're trying to push forward. This industry can create jobs for our youths, from people who cut the stones, from people who make the metals, whether it's gold, whether it's silver, whether it's any of these metals, from diamonds and all that. People who cut this, there's a big industry there that we can create employment for our people. So it's got a lot of potential. It's unfortunate that we've left it behind for so long, and that inertia of starting again is what we are witnessing now. But once we get moving, I mean, we'll be coasting downhill, and of course, Nigeria will be the better for it. Absolutely.
Now, Honourable, I want to drag your attention to artisanal mining. As we already know, this is a huge source of livelihood for lots of people in the rural areas. However, the health hazards are inevitable, and I'm curious as to if there are, other alternatives to this form of mining, looking at the fact that it's terrible for the health, looking at lead poisoning, mercury poisoning, amongst others.
Well, artisanal mining, as it were, people used to call them illegal miners. But we said, no, they're not illegal miners. These are artisans who are engaged in subsistence living. They go there, they do surface mining, they dig about 2 feet, 10 feet max, and they get some minerals, they sell, and they get them their next meal, or maybe something to keep them for the next 1 month. So these are the artisanal miners. But they're going about it the legal way. And what government has done something that's very fantastic. Even before I came into office, they've created a fund for them. We have about 5 billion naira fund, which we are managing to say, look, these artisanal miners should come in. We train them. We give them equipment. We teach them safer methods. Because they're not trained and they're just doing this haphazardly. We've had incidents, like you mentioned, lead poisoning, which happened in Zamfara. We've had the walls of the mine collapsing on them. At times, it's just water, you hit a water table and then the water just flows into the mine, and before you can get out, it drowns out people. So this is what we're doing. We're calling these artisanal miners, we are organizing them into cooperatives, because that's the only way we can deal with them, and that's the only way we can ensure that the money we give them comes back. We're also providing equipment for mining, which will make them to be more productive. So these are the only way. We are organizing them, teaching them safer methods of doing this. So that, like the issue that killed several people of lead poisoning will not occur again. This is what we are doing. We are organizing them, we are training them, and of course, we are funding them to make sure that they do it.
Honourable Minister, I like your reference to the word potential, because it will look like, although Nigeria has been mining since 1902, almost a century later, we're still at the level of potential, particularly when you consider what we've been able to achieve in the solid mineral sector with what you have in Ghana, what you have in Guinea, Democratic Republic of Congo, South Africa, Zambia even, and yet Nigeria has the biggest resource in terms of solid mineral resources, about 40 properly identified in about 450 locations across the Federation. What do you think is responsible for this inability to move from being a minerals-rich country to actually a mining country? Is it the threat of artisanal mining? Is it lack of infrastructure? Is it policy somersault? Or is it just that, we have not really worked out the connection between using mining as a tool of economic growth and development, and we just pay lip service to it, government after government?
Well, the truth of the matter is, I say, this potential is not something that's just academical. You need to look at what sustained Nigeria. You were right, from 1902. What sustained Nigeria before the advent of oil and gas? I told you, it's not just a matter of saying the potential is there. It actually was the main earner for Nigeria. We were exporting coal from Enugu exporting tin from Jos. And of course, we are doing columbite. So it's not just, oh, well, we're just talking about potential. It's what has happened before in Nigeria. And some would say it's the cost of the oil. When we got oil and gas, in the 50s, we drifted away from mining. Mining was the main thing Nigeria was doing. Nigeria was not known for oil. We left mining behind. Those countries that didn't have oil and were relying on mining, of course, they progressed. New technologies, new findings, and all that. The mining also has to do with exploration. As of today, we say we found 44 minerals. There may be many more there. We need to invest more in exploration to discover them. They're all over this country. You'll find them in every nook and cranny. So what really happened was that we lost focus. And then by the 70s, I think about 75, with the indigenization decree, the big mining companies left Nigeria. Because government, of course, naturalized everything. They left. So we were totally out of mining. So if you are talking potentials today, it's because we are just starting all over again. And like I said, there's always inertia. Something you've not done before, you're trying to go back to it, it's going to take you a while. We go to all these mining fora abroad, and we sell Nigeria to them and say, Nigeria is not known for mining. That's what they tell us. Nigeria is known for oil and gas. So we're trying to sell Nigeria back to the consciousness of these people. We need the big miners to come into Nigeria to develop the mines. What the artisanal miners are doing is scratching the surface. That's not even the minerals that we have in Nigeria. The minerals that we have in Nigeria is deep down there. And you can't do that with artisanal mining, with all these simple implements. You need to build proper mine shafts. At times, you go down about half a kilometer into the ground before you hit the payload. So this is what we're trying to do. Get the people who can do this, and that's when Nigeria can make money from this. We are not making money from artisanal miners. Most of these people are not even, they are not informally. They don't have licenses. They just do it because it's at the back of their house. They met their parents doing it, and they're all just doing it for their subsistence living.
Honourable, not only are we not making money from artisanal miners, but apparently we're actually losing billions of naira per year from illegal mining. But I want to touch on a point that Dr. Batty made with regards to countries that are further than us in terms of mining, particularly the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, a recent report came out that discussed the mining of cobalt, which is used in the production of telephones, and the fact that big companies like Tesla, Google, Apple are now under investigation for use of child miners in the DRC. What checks and balances do we have in place to ensure that that won't take place in Nigeria?
Well, seriously, DRC has its own peculiar problems, because it's a war-torn country. Some would say the country is not at peace because of the mining activity, because it pays a lot of people. When the government is not in place, a lot of illegality can take place. That's the problem in DRC. In Nigeria, thank God, our system is not anywhere near that. We have children in mining. Essentially, most of these kids in mining are brought in by their mothers. So there are a lot of women in mining. But the government is doing something already. And we had a few pilot programs that has worked. What we did was that we provided the women with simple implements, like wheelbarrow, shovel, and all that. At the same time, we furnished the classrooms in those communities, put classroom furniture there. And enrollment went up from about 25, that was the enrollment before we did this, went up to about 400. Enrollment shot up. The women were able to produce more with the implements we gave them. Because either though, they were using their kids, to carry whatever they find, go and bring this and all that. Now they can put their children in school. They have the equipment we provided them with, which you can use to increase their productivity. So this is working, and we're trying to spread it. We've done this in about 2 places, trying to get the kids out of the mine. We support the women, because mostly you find that women bring their children to mining. We support the women with the equipment, give them a little funding, and of course, taking the kids out of that. Of course, we also, help the classrooms, help the schools in those areas, and then the kids can go back to school. So these are some of the success story that we won't repeat that. But I can show you, the responsible miners, the big ones, will not employ children because, they have a reputation to protect and all that. And these are the people we are trying to encourage to come into Nigeria. When they do, then we will absorb all these artisanal miners because they now become their workers. They can now work deep down in the ground and, of course, do what they're doing now in safer environments.
All right, thank you so much for that, Honourable. Now, in April 2008, the Minister for mining and steel at the time, Sarafa Ishola mentioned that, Nigeria was considering coal as an alternative source of power. Now, I'm curious as to whether or not this is still in the works, knowing that we have about 10,000 megawatts of coal for power lying idle.
As we speak, coal being used for power is ongoing in Nigeria in so many areas. I don't want to mention specific companies, so it won't be like I'm advertising anybody here. But a lot of companies are using coal to produce in Nigeria now. So coal as a form of energy, it's already a big thing in Nigeria. Coal to power, coal to fire engines, to get heat and all that is already a big thing in Nigeria. As we speak, people are asking for more licenses to mine coal, to produce power, whether for their own use, captive generation, or to put on the grid. So it's something that's already gone big in Nigeria. We have a lot of companies in their production system.
Well, let me ask you a question about Zamfara. I mean, bandits, illegal miners, whatever, artisanal miners took over, mining in that state for gold. And that led to a crisis, and eventually government had to shut down the mines in the Zamfara state. What is the situation with that? And what is the situation also with the provision for rehabilitation fund by miners under Section 121 of the Minerals and Mining Act of 2007? That rehabilitation fund, environmental and rehabilitation fund, nothing seems to have been done about it. But if anything has been done about it, you would like to tell us.
Okay, what happened in Zamfara was actually that, you see, let's distinguish it. There are people who call artisanal miners. These are mostly, people who just do artisanal mining. And then, of course, the illegal miners. These are foreign nationals who have invaded Nigeria and, of course, are going into the interland to do mining illegally. We welcome foreigners to come and do mining, but you need to go through the proper protocol. You need to get your license and then go and do your work. And, of course, you need to report on what you're doing. So the illegal miners, we're dealing with those ones. What happened in Zamfara in that particular case was, look, in most cases, you don't find minerals in isolation. They come with other things. Of course, when these artisanal miners mined gold in Zamfara, there was lead with it, and they needed to separate the gold from the lead. Unfortunately, because they were not properly schooled, trained in what to do, they were using their pestle and mortar to pound it because it comes out in chunk. When you do that, the gold nuggets will fall off, and then the lead is there. The same mortar that they were using for their grains that they were eating was the same mortar they were using to separate gold and lead. And of course, this is how they ingested lead. Unfortunately, it led to several deaths and all that. Government is gone in now, and like I said, that fund, working with Medicine Sans Frontier, these Doctors Without Border, has been working with the ministry in rehabilitating people there. Some people, of course, a lot of people died. Lead injection itself is a major thing. It affects the nervous system. And we're working with these kids, people who are affected. We're trying to rehabilitate them. So it's an ongoing process. It's something that's been going on. And that's why government shut down mining activity in Zamfara, especially with the illegal miners. The illegal miners themselves are creating some instability. You had situations where, because of what they want to do, maybe force within a community, they set a few huts on fire, and people run away, banditry and all that. While people are away, they are busy mining. A presidential task force was set up on that, and people were actually arrested. They were caught because you go to some remote areas that you and I would think, oh, they're saying there's Boko Haram, there's this, you will not want to go. But you get there, you find these people there, and they're thriving. So you begin to ask. There's a lot of hype about this, and some people are hyping that so they can hide under that because people will not come there and they were doing their illegal activity. Some of them have been arrested. The presidential task force is a standing force that we use to intervene. When we have federal mines officers all over the state, they rove around with their staff. Whenever we have reports of this illegal activity, we send in this presidential task force and, of course, to arrest the situation there. We have them all over the country. They're mostly foreign nationals who are involved in this illegal mining activity. The artisanal miners, on the other hand, are Nigerians who are doing the mining, though without proper licensing regime, but we're trying to organize these people into cooperatives and bring them into the fold.
So, Honourable Minister, I don't want us to just focus on the negatives because, as you said, we have grown from 0.03 to 0.55%, and there has been an increase of $5 million. But I want you to tell us the opportunities and expectations that we as Nigerians can expect from this new and developing value chain.
Well, the first thing I told you, apart from revenue, is the employment opportunities that is there. This sector can generate a lot of jobs. I've just told you about the gemstones industry. It's a very big opportunity. Now, at the same time, there's a new policy we call the downstream policy. In the past, most of the minerals mined in Nigeria are exported raw in the raw form. We're now saying there must be beneficiation. That is, you must add value before you export them. Of course, there's a lot of job opportunity in these as well. And of course, we'll not be getting peanuts. You know, when we export crude oil, for instance, we don't get as much as if we refine the crude oil and we export PMS or AGO or aviation fuel and all that, we get more. So we are avoiding that pitfall in mining to make sure that we would add value. That is called beneficiation. We add value to whatever we're doing, whether it's tin, it's smelted, and all that. The gold, we have given licenses to at least 2 gold refinery companies now. One is based in Ogun State, the other one is in Abuja here. So the gold we find, instead of taking the raw gold abroad, you know, in the North, we'll refine them locally. Government has also created a situation where the CBN can buy gold from us and keep some of their reserves in gold. So these are all measures to encourage the mining in Nigeria. Like I said, the revenue will come. But most importantly, at this point in Nigeria, we need to create employment for our people because the idle hands are the ones that are causing the problem.
Absolutely. Speaking of employment opportunities now, Honourable, I'm curious as to what funding is available to, you know, corporators or individuals interested in mining as a, you know, means of livelihood. You know, what funding is available and how easy is it to access this funding?
Well, government, like I said, since President Muhammadu Buhari came into power, he has put, like they say, put the money where your mouth is. They put a lot of money into mining. There was a presidential intervention of about 30 billion, which is being used very well. There's also the World Bank support of about, we have about $150 million World Bank support in mining. But to go to your specific question, there's this fund that is created. Is about, we have 2.5 billion naira, which we have put with the Bank of Industry. Bank of Industry has also backed that up with another 2.5 billion naira, making a 5 billion naira fund that is for artisanal miners. It is to help them. It's so easy to access because we've tried the method in the past and then there was a problem. Everybody thinks, look, this is part of the national cake. They want to access the money and then go away with that. That's not what we want. We want to use this money. We are giving out this money at about 3 to 5% max, 3% interest rate. So it's actually something that's very inexpensive to get. But the best way that we're doing now is organizing these people into cooperatives. We use cooperatives so that we use peer pressure. You don't have to bring any collateral or any assets. But if we give members of the cooperative, maybe we give 5 members in a cooperative of about 200 people, they are going to be the guarantors of these people. And these people don't return that money, nobody else gets from that cooperative. They are blacklisted. So we are using peer pressure, and that's the easiest way. Once you are registered at the CAC, we're also helping them with that registration. Your cooperative is registered, you have trustees and all those things. The cooperative can approach us. And of course, we look at the activity. Another way is we are providing equipment for them. Instead of giving them money, now they're using simple implements, using their hands. We provide excavators, we provide bulldozers. So the equipment is warehoused by a leasing company. We supply the equipment to the leasing company. They can go to the leasing company and lease the equipment at next to nothing because we localize these leasing outlets so that wherever mining activity is taking place, you have something very close to you. They bring equipment for you, use it for a few days, it enhances your productivity and all that. So these are some of the ways we are supporting the artisanal miners.
Yes,
the
okay,
fund
clear.
is easy to access,
Honorable
the fund is given to them, and also we are providing equipment as well.
I guess you are talking about the Solid Minerals Development Fund. But before we go, because we have just a few more minutes, less than 3 minutes actually, I'd like to ask you about, the Minerals and Mining Act, number 20 of 2007, which vests the ownership of all solid minerals and all minerals in Nigeria in the federal government. Now, some stakeholders, communities, even state governments have been saying that part of the law should be reviewed in the true spirit of federalism, so that states, can also share the ownership, direct ownership of these minerals and exercise control over them in their own areas of jurisdiction. What do you think? It sounds like a political question, but it's something that was brought up when we had a crisis in Zamfara.
Well, it's not really a big issue. It's not the Mining Act of 2007 that says that. It's actually the Constitution. The Constitution has what you call the exclusive list, the concurrent list, and the residual list. Mining happens to fall on the exclusive list. And people tend to forget easily. Oil and gas is mining. Nobody seems to be saying that, River State should be doing oil and gas, or Bayelsa should be getting oil and gas. No. And that's what we are doing. We are doing advocacy now. I think just the week before the last, I was in Lagos State to speak with Governor Sanwo-Olu, and that was on Thursday. The following Friday, I was in Osun, and I was speaking with Governor Oyetola. We're trying to let these governors understand that, look, we are partners in progress. Yes, it's a federation, but unless the Constitution is changed, these are things that are basic. Mining is on the exclusive list. And everybody is clamoring now because we all have minerals. We tend to forget that we've partaken in this money coming to the center from oil and gas. This oil and gas came from a particular section of this country. And they've allowed the federal government to mine it and bring the money to the center. And it's shared. You have this FAC meeting every month. Everybody shares from that. We have to allow the same. I say what is source for goose is source for gander. You have to allow the same for the minerals in your jurisdiction. The federal government will mine it, make the money, and take it to the center. And the money will be shared from FAC. What we've done in mining as well is what we do in oil and gas. There's 13% derivation. So people who have minerals, they get 13% derivation.
I'm sorry,
or whatever we make from their side.
I'm sorry, we'll have to call it, a day on this conversation. But let me remind you that, yes, this whole point about concurrent and exclusive list, this is something that many Nigerians want changed, because they say that if we must run a federal system, then the federal government cannot be acting like a headmaster over other parts of the federation. Mm-hmm. So, and that was why I brought it to your attention. I'm not too sure that those state governments would not want to also control their own resources. In fact, people in the Niger Delta insist that they don't even want that derivation. They want to take ownership of their own resources. And, that's part of the problem we have with the Nigerian conversation. But thank you very much for coming to the morning show. Thank you very much indeed. We wish you all the best in your position as Minister of Steel.
Thank you so much, Ruben, and the ladies there.
Thank you
very much.